Cairo in 2086 glittered like a mosaic of mirrors. The city had always leaned toward the sun, but now it did so literally. Every facade blinking with photovoltaic tiles that pivoted at dawn like petals greeting the light. Solar pergolas overhung balconies. The resurrected tram lines glided beneath canopies of translucent graphene that drank heat and turned it into humming current. Minarets wore slender turbines. Marble domes quietly distilled water from the dust-caked air. The Nile itself, channeled through new reed-lined sluices, shimmered with floating panels that folded each night like sleeping lotus flowers. It was an age of engineered radiance, of energy coaxed from rays instead of oil. Yet even in this neon future, Cairo still smelled at sunset of cardamom, diesel, and bread. Rania El-Sisi, senior systems architect at Heliosys, had little time to notice the scent. She lived inside light, from spectral simulations on her contact lenses to the heat maps that skittered across her wrist sleeve. Her life was a continuum of color-coded wattage. For the past 6 months, she had been designing a fleet of solar pollinating drones, a municipal project intended to ease the agricultural chokehold of Egypt's arid interior. The machines, nicknamed Khanates after the ancient word for caravan, were shaped like streamlined scarabs. They were supposed to flit across rooftop gardens and vertical farms, collecting and releasing grains of life the way their biological cousins once had. Yet the Khanates remained erratic. Their microvane wings sometimes caught rogue drafts and hurled the bots into walls. Worse, their pollen reservoirs clogged, leaving basil stems barren and tomato blossoms shriveled. Ranya's supervisors wanted efficiency metrics. She wanted elegance. Neither was getting satisfaction. 2 floors above Heliosys's testing quarters lived Hassan Nabawi, beekeeper and last proprietor of the Honey of Horus cooperative. Hassan's rooftop apiary occupied a rectangle of cracked concrete edged by clay planters. There, under a tangle of bougainvillea, 14 hives buzzed day and night, a small rebellion of furred bodies in a chrome forest. Hassan wore his veil loose and walked barefoot when he checked the frames, letting the comb's vibrations travel through his arches. While much of Egypt's pollinator population had collapsed under heat spikes, pesticide drift, and habitat loss, Hassan's bees persisted. Some said thrived, because he tended them like beloved relatives. He talked to them in Saidi Arabic, sang Kalthum while uncapping honey, and planted lavender just for their pleasure. Tourists from floating hotels booked visits to gulp his herb-infused nectar from smart glass jars that projected desert sunsets. Locals bought it because it tasted the way childhood afternoons used to feel: sticky, sun-drenched, safe. The engineer and the apiarist met one blistering noon when a Khanate spiraled off its calibration grid and crashed onto Hassan's roof, shredding a patch of time. The drone's iridium shell lay dented among panicked bees. Hassan, quick to shield the insects, pinned the twitching scarab under a breadboard and hurried downstairs in shirt sleeves speckled with propolis. His knock on the Heliosys service hatch startled Rania, who was rerunning fluid dynamics code. Before she could speak, Hassan thrust the damaged bot forward. "Your machine tried to mate with my hive," he said, voice tight but not unkind. "My queens are already devoted." Rania winced, powering down the code stream. "I'm sorry, it wasn't supposed to clear the boundary net." It did. Now half my workers are jangling pheromones like alarm bells. She examined the unit wings, bent, intake clogged with thyme pollen, its solar film scuffed. A miniature LED winked distress pattern. "I'll fix it," she said. Hassan tilted his head. "Fixing a dent doesn't soothe bees. They read intention." He peered past her shoulder at the lab benches crowded with skittering prototypes. "Have you considered why they fail?" Rania almost retorted. He was a beekeeper, not an engineer, yet she bit her tongue. The drones did fail. She invited him in. Among humming power banks and solder fumes, they swapped credentials. She explained the Khanate's goal. He described waggle dances that conveyed azimuth angles no microchip yet matched. Their first conversation ended with tentative curiosity, the kind that might wither or bloom depending on who watered it next. 2 evenings later, Rania climbed the rickety external stair to Hassan's roof. Dusk had cooled Cairo's baked concrete, and the hive's entrances glowed under bioluminescent strips so bees could see without the spectrum that disoriented them. Hassan offered tea perfumed by mint his bees frequented. She tasted the drink sweet earthy, far superior to cafeteria sachets, and exhaled a quiet subhanallah. Hassan grinned, pleased. He opened a hive. Heat and sound billowed forth a symphonic thrum. Bees coated each wooden frame, their bodies vibrating at 230 beats per second, wings refracting pink from the dying sun. Rania watched, visor off, letting living fractals fill her eyes. This, Hassan said, is 100 million years of design. They don't just transfer pollen, they interpret a city. Rania nodded slowly. Our algorithms track humidity, temperature, wind shear, but we can't interpret. We only react. You can teach them, he suggested, to listen first. During the following weeks, rooftop to lab, tea to coffee, they stitched a collaboration. Hassan decoded pheromone cocktails that signaled forage quality. Rihanna embedded microampule dispensers in the connates to release synthetic equivalents. She overhauled wing kinematics by studying bees' figure-8 strokes, replacing rigid veins with graphene mylar membranes that flexed in real time. Hassan contributed pollen samples so the bots could calibrate texture recognition, preventing future clogs. They laughed at mishaps, a drone misreading queen scent and performing a clumsy courting loop around Hassan, another overdosing on rose extract, dive-bombing a bridal photo shoot on the Corniche. Yet progress bred obstacles. Municipal committee meetings dragged. Veteran agronomists scoffed at robot locusts. Funding hinged on demonstrable yield improvement across several districts, and the Connate's test plots were mere terraces. Worse, the desert winds that sometimes swept in from the Sahara scoured panels with a brace of sand, dulling solar efficiency. One afternoon, the regional minister of sustainability toured Heliosis. Standing among prototypes, he pointed at Hassan's bee-webbed forearms. Charming, he said, but nostalgia won't feed 8 million. After the delegation left, Rania kicked a toolbox. It clanged down the corridor. To them it's numbers, she muttered. Never wonder. Hassan bent to retrieve a fallen spanner. Then let's give them numbers they can't ignore. They decided on a moonlit coding marathon, mixing tactile tradition with digital wizardry. Hassan brewed coffee thick as resin. Rania rewrote reinforcement learning loops to incorporate hive feedback. They set up an experimental enclosure on his roof. Half real blossoms, half printed replicas infused with amino-rich gel. If a drone landed on a fake flower too often, it lost energy credits. If it followed realistic pollen gradients, it earned them. By dawn, the bots hovered with new caution, sampling air currents and swiveling toward authentic blooms. When the first chamzine of the season roared in ember sky, sand rasping against steel Rania's heart clenched. Their drones, lightweight miracles, could be shredded. She and Hassan lugged the hives into a stairwell, sealed the apiary door with tarp, then crouched inside as wind howled like vengeful djinn. In the dark, buzzing diffused into frightened silence. Hassan whispered stories of Aswan childhood storms, of grandmother's honey poultice for cracked lips. Rania found herself leaning against him, feeling the warmth of someone who could recite atmospheric poems instead of correlation matrices. The storm passed before dawn. They emerged to find panels scoured dull, but drones intact. Bees ventured out cautiously. Sunlight fractured through residual dust, painting the city in sepia. Recovery accelerated. Rania's team, skeptical but desperate, integrated Hassan's data into the official firmware. Soon, the Khanates navigated gusts with micro-adjustments reminiscent of living wings. They landed with hesitant grace, stirring pollen like golden confetti. Sugar snap peas clung to trellises, tiny pods forming where blossoms had been barren. Heliosis scheduled a final field trial at Wahat, the sprawling vertical farm complex near Giza's refurbished necropolis. If yields rose by 15%, the municipality would greenlight mass deployment. The night before launch, Rania couldn't sleep. She paced the lab, checking charge levels, airspeeds, redundancy circuits. Finally, she climbed to Hassan's roof. He was there, of course, silhouetted against the Ryan with a smoker in one hand. "You're worried," he observed. "I trust the math," she sighed, "but I want the story to live." He closed the smoker, walked over. "You can quantify lumens and joules. You can't quantify the first sip of honey after Ramadan fast, or the hush when bees suspend their song just before rain. Those are stories, but they feed us too." The words settled in her ribs like a gentle hive. She stepped closer. "Then come tomorrow. Wear your veil. The drones recognize you." "I'll come," he said. Their fingers brushed, tentative as antennae. Morning swelled gold over limestone pyramids, over monorail tracks, over hydroponic terraces stacked 30 stories high. Wahat's supervisor, a woman named Chief Nur, circled clipboards and pressure tablets. Rows of cucumber vines drooped with pale blossoms. Bees could not reach this high. Winds discouraged them. That was why the Kanates existed. 30 units lifted from their docking nest. Sunlight poured onto their panels, quickening internal capacitors. Anya's display showed each ID dot blinking green. Hassan, from the observation deck, watched through polarized netting. The drones scattered, then recoalesced into a lattice, mapping currents. They drifted over the first tier of vines. Ampoules expelled trace amounts of nectar mimic. Sensors recorded contact, stamen to microbrush filament. Pollen mass transferred registered. Minutes ticked. A botanical diagnostician sampled blossoms behind them. "Viable," she murmured. "Another viable." Across the terrace, cucumbers began the invisible alchemy of fruit set. Halfway through the trial, a servo in Drone 17 jammed. Rania's heart pounded. The unit yawed left, wobbling toward a glass partition. She tapped override, nothing. But before collision, 3 adjacent drones angled in, forming a wind pocket that nudged the malfunctioning unit upright. Rania stared. That was not in code. It was emergent behavior patterned on honeybees' mid-flight saving maneuvers, patterned over weeks of exposure to Hassan's hive. The jam cleared. Mission resumed. By noon, diagnostic teams reported a pollination efficacy of 32% over control plots, more than double requirement. Applause rippled. Chief Noor signed digital forms, municipalities pinged approvals. A contract worth millions flashed onto Helios's servers. Rania exhaled all the tension she'd hoarded. She turned to locate Hassan, found him leaning on the railing, smile broad, eyes moist. From crates at his feet, he released a handful of live bees. They spiraled upward, exploring alien altitudes. Yet instead of veering off, they homed to the Kanate's residual pheromone trails, landing briefly on brushed carbon fiber before flitting to cucumber flower. Cameras captured the moment, copper stripes against gunmetal wings, nature and machine side by side in quiet choreography. In the weeks that followed, Cairo's rooftops bloomed with renewed fervor. Integrated hives accompanied drone nests. Schools streamed lessons comparing waggle dance to packet routing. Newspapers ran features titled, "When Scarabs and Bees Write Love Letters." Rania wrote white papers. Hassan delivered tasting lectures pairing honey varietals with solar-aged dates. Investors lined up, though he kept jars aside for neighborhood children who returned empties for refills, just like his grandmother's day. One twilight they stood atop his roof, surveying rows of panels and hives, of parsley clusters and smart LED trellises. A Khanate zipped past, paused as if acknowledging the 2 architects of its second birth, then dove toward a patch of blue basil. Rania placed her hand on Hassan's shoulder. You realize, she said softly, we've rewritten two sciences. He laughed, low. I only followed my bees. And I, she replied, only followed the sun. They turned toward each other. The city's mirrored skins reflected apricot light, shimmering like molten honey. Under that glow, they exchanged a kiss, tentative, sweet, carrying the warmth of florid afternoons and photovoltaic dawns. Bees drifted around them, curious but calm. Somewhere nearby, a child squealed, chasing a drone that sprayed an educational hologram of pollen grains, enlarged thousandfold. Below, tram lines flashed blue between walls once soot to back, now radiant. The future of Cairo, of any city, had never been guaranteed by circuits alone, nor guarded solely by tradition. It emerged in the spaces where code met craft, where someone who spoke in lumens listened to someone who listened to wings. In that threshold, honey thickened and hearts found calibration, and so the rooftops kept humming, solar cells drinking daylight, bees bottling it, both forging gold from the sky